Hey guys, welcome to another topic. Okay, this topic will be treating HTML layout. CSS layout. The CSS layout will be looking at the position property. The position property has to do with how you fit in your elements, where the position that you place your elements. In the previous ones, we did a text align. The text align will help you on where will help you fit your text. But for this positioning, this topic now will help in positioning your elements, maybe your a tag or your div tags. So, and in the CSS attribute, the CSS layout position has four attributes. The first one is static, the second one is relative, the third one is fixed, and the last one is absolute. So the static one is the default. So whenever you position an element using static, it will always move with the position of the body of the document, or the position of the document actually. Then the next one, which is relative. The relative will always position the elements in relative to the document. So whenever you add for the relative to make a change, you might add a left or right or bottom CSS property, and that will style the element to be positioned relatively to the document. And for every gap that is left of the styling, no other element will occupy that gap. So we still see that in action. And the next one, which is the third one, should be the fixed. So the fixed is always positioned via the viewport. So that means whenever you scroll, and let me say I have this here, whenever I scroll, this will continue to be here and will not move. So it's always positioned to this viewport. So, and the last one is the absolute. The absolute always goes with the parent ancestor, the position that the ancestor with a position relative or fixed, but not static. So whenever you have a position relative or fixed, you can add an absolute, which is a child element within the position relative ancestor or parent. So even when the child, that is the absolute, does not find a position relative or fixed, it will position itself based on the document. And the last one that I'll be looking also into is CSS overlapping. Most times where you place your elements and it will stack up. So the last item that you put on the last element that you put there might be the one to show. So we'll see how to avoid that by using a CSS property called z-index. So let's create our file here. CSS position will be very fast here. CSS position.html, and let's initialize. We'll call the CSS layout layout position, CSS position actually. So open up our style. And then what we'll be doing, let's make a combination of what we have learned so far within here. It is most of the things. We'll be adding a header which will initialize our navigation, and also having a section. Instead of these are the HTML5 syntaxes. You also have an article within a section, and then let's create I think we have to copy from what we have done before. Let's copy from our CSS attribute what we have done here. Let me just get the links. CSS position, okay. And also for this one we'll be using a lorem ipsum, lorem lorem 300, lorem 300. I think I need that, lorem 300. Let me close this so that we can better see this. Let's format. Okay. Okay, then we also have an article. Maybe our article will be in a list. You are on the list times. Let's add up to 5 things. Tips on bits. Dev. Okay, so tips on better dev. Always make research. Follow your tutor, and always practice. Always ask question when confused. Be humble and learn. So let's see how this looks in our browser here. CSS position. Okay, so CSS position. Okay, yeah, that's it. David gOZiechukwu, home, contact, about, and login. Okay, so let's tie our nav, the header here. We'll be styling the header. So the header should have a height of 100 pixels. Yeah, 100 pixels. And 100 pixels, and a line height. In order to make the text to be centered, line height would also be 100 pixels. I'll be having a background color, antique white. Let's see. Okay, we'll be making the text to be centered, text line center, and what else? for all the A tag here, I want it to be to have a padding left of 50px, and I also want our logo. We'll be using the attribute selector. Our logo, that should be href equal to this logo. Oops, made a mistake. Then we'll be increasing the font size in order to be different from others. The font size should be 1.5 em. And then let's see this. Okay, so let's increase the font size of all the A here. Font size should be 1.2 em. Okay, and then remove the text underline here by using text decoration, none, and color to be let's give it a color of pink. I don't know how this pink will look on the background color. Doesn't look good. I'll be adding a white, scotch white. The white is not too thick, so let's give it a dark black, so that we will be able to see. Okay, and let's also give a color to the section. The section only. Okay, so let's give a height. Let's see if you can give a height to the body, so I'll be able to test out what we have done. The body, then give it a 150%, and the body, I'm already restarting it. Sorry, height of 450%. I only want it to be okay, so you can see. Then let's start with the position static and see how it is. The position static will always follow the flow of the document or the body. So we'll be adding to our nav, as our header, a position static. Let's see how it flows. Refresh. And see, it doesn't make any change. Even if we add a left or a right, it won't make any change. Left 20 pixels. You can see it doesn't make any change. So by default, the static is the one that is being displayed to us by default. So the next one is the fixed, the relative. The relative will make the header to adjust a little bit from its normal position. It will be position relative to the normal flow of the document. So we'll be adding a position, or should I comment it? This of position static is what we have. and position relative, and then let's see what we have here. We can see it doesn't make any change, but when we add a left or a right or a bottom, then our change will take effect. 30 pixels. Then let's see, and we can see that it now makes a change from its normal position. So that's it. And we also have position fixed. So the position fixed, we make this header to be fixed even when we scroll up and down. As you can see here, when we scroll down the navigation here, we won't see it anymore. But whenever we add a fixed position to it, it will remain fixed in that position based on the viewports and fixed. So let's refresh, and we can see whenever we move, it will continue to remain there. Let's add a top, and this is our header. Let's add the bottom 30. So border bottom 30 pixels. Seems like it's not changing. Position fixed and the border bottom 30 pixels. Border bottom 30 pixels. Okay, so let's open a section and see if we could add the border top. I don't know why this is not really working. Section, have a border. Let's have a top 50. Okay, 50 pixels. Okay, we'll come back to this maybe in a later chapter. So you see how our navigation is now positioned. So we might even add a width 100%. That's it. And we will be coming to this overlap. We'll be coming to this overlap. Let's look into let's do the overlapping now. For the overlapping, we have a property called z-index. So since if we could be able to the z-index wouldn't be necessary here. So let's see how the position absolute works. Position absolute, we actually want to position the article to be absolute, to be relative to this section element. So let's add a section here. I don't want to give it a class. Let's start the element once. Position relative we'll be adding a width. Let's say our width will be 400 pixels or 600 pixels. And our height will be up to 400 pixels. Then for the article we have position absolute. Let me comment this off and see how it is in the browser now. Okay, so because of the width that we gave to it, and actually this is not how. For the section is supposed to be behind the navigation elements, or we'll come to that. Let's fix this one. So this is a width of 600 pixels and the height of 400 pixels. So let's increase this to 700, 450, and then let's see how it is. 700, 450, and then for the position absolute, you can also add a left, bottom, right, or left, bottom, or top. So let's add a right here to make it move to the right, 0. So you can see. So this element now, which is the article, has now been positioned relatively to its ancestor or its parent, the section. So then let's touch this overlapping. There's a property called z-index, so we'll be adding a z-index to the header. Maybe we'll be adding a 1 so that the z-index, the overlapping, will not be effective 1. So for the z-index, the greater the number, that means the greater whichever element that has the greater value of z-index, that will be the first one to appear or to be above the other elements. So let's refresh, and so you can see. So that means this section has a 0 index and this has a 1, and a z index set to 1. So, and that's it, guys. I would have loved to touch this. Let's see if we could really go through it and see what is wrong, and maybe add a border top to the section. Let's add a top here. Top 100. I don't seem to fix this. 100 pixel. Did it move? Okay, so it's moved. So the 100 pixels. Though this is not a good idea. So 100 pixels. So you can see. So the header now has been placed, has a position of fixed, and this has a position of relative, and the article has a position of absolute, which is in relation to the section. So guys, that's it. That's all about CSS positioning using static, fixed, relative, and absolute.